Hello and welcome. My name is Larry Gerardo and I am the business and product owner for MovePro 360, the Cartus client mobility hub and single source of truth. Joining me today to discuss distributed workforce solutions, identifying risks, and enhancing compliance are Wendy Kozak, Cartus Senior Vice President, Distributed Workforce Solutions, Relocation Accounting, and International Compensation Services, and Terry LaFollette, Topia Solutions Consultant. Most of us are familiar with the proverb, necessity is the mother of invention. Well, in 2020, the pandemic very quickly ushered in the need for companies to allow their employees to work remotely. And now as we emerge from the pandemic, we know that large numbers of employees will continue to work remotely, certainly for some time. And with the drive for top talent, geographic location will be less and less of a barrier for hiring. This is to say that virtual or remote work locations are here to stay. And when coupled with the age-old challenge of tracking business travelers who are certain to return in force when the pandemic restrictions are eased, compliance with tax, immigration, and regulatory bodies will be even more difficult and necessary than before. Authorities are certainly paying attention, and you will need to as well. At the very crux of the issues for companies, first and foremost, is the need to know where employees are when they are working. Not surprisingly, companies are struggling to track their employees for compliance purposes. Manual efforts abound, but they are fraught with serious gaps and limitations. As we canvass our clients in the industry as a whole, we hear the following additional primary concerns. Data is scattered amongst disparate systems. There is no single repository or point of aggregation. Consider payroll, HRIS, and travel, as well as other systems, and often multiples of each for global organizations. All departments are impacted, not just mobility. Business travel and remote workers can come from any department and may require engagement from HR, tax, legal, IT, and security, as well as the business units themselves. Leaders are overwhelmed and unsure where to start, and even when they do, they often have limitations and struggle to transcend their own spheres of influence, leading to limited or spotty coverage. Risks are real and growing, affecting not just companies, but employees too. Identifying the risks and knowing when to act is of paramount importance for both. Ignoring the problems will not make them go away. And looking for one comprehensive, not piecemeal solution to handle all scenarios. Business travel, remote work, hybrid options. This is a complicated and involving environment that requires time, expertise, and tools to manage effectively. So which of these concerns ring true for you and your organization? What is your risk tolerance for your company, for your employees? Here is a list of compliance regulations across the globe that companies need to adhere to. This list is not comprehensive. There are certainly more. And rules and regulations are changing all the time. Employees working remotely, which is outside of their normal work location, exacerbates the challenge because employers don't always know where they are. This can create both personal and corporate compliance challenges for tax, immigration, and duty of care. In the United States alone, tax requirements differ by state. Approximately half of the states require withholding on day one when an employee works in the state, while 8 states require withholding after 14 days of work, and others vary with other rules. Companies should be mindful of the state rules when approving business travel or remote work. This can also create a nexus for the company, so it's important to check with corporate tax before allowing tax and/or remote work in a state where the company has not previously had or reported employees. The work and commensurate payroll withholding may trigger corporate obligations and unintended consequences. Now extrapolate these types of rules and regulations across the globe and throw in additional factors such as double tax treaties and totalization agreements, as well as visa and immigration laws. Suffice it to say, there are a myriad of rules and potential scenarios to stay on top of. We leverage technology, active and passive data sources, and technical experts in tax and immigration to provide you with the information you need for both business travelers and remote workers. Is your company paying attention and actively trying to keep up and comply with all the laws and regulations? Well, we're here to help. Cartus and Topia have partnered together to provide a comprehensive yet flexible suite of services to simply and expertly guide you through the compliance morass that grows more and more challenging every day. Your success depends on your ability to efficiently and effectively aggregate and analyze data from multiple sources in a dynamic environment to discern potential risks and to decide who should act and when. Our end-to-end service delivery models enables you to do just that and is founded on the following principles. Providing meaningful ongoing guidance. As a service provider with long-term relationships and user experience at our core, Cartus solution goes beyond just providing data. We'll provide a combination of actionable information and support to help you manage your distributed workforce. Leveraging leading technology. We partnered with Topia because Compass provides us with a best-in-class technology solution so we can provide our clients with the information they need to manage the risks associated with business travelers and remote workers. The technology is simple and easy for employees to use. Bringing expertise. We bring the knowledge and expertise to the engagement, allowing you to focus your energy and resources on your core business. We manage the systems, initiate communications, and provide actionable reporting based on your organization's risk profile. We partner with top companies, tax and immigration, who provide technical expertise in their core areas of focus so you don't have to. Elevation of process. Our experience and mastery of process ensures actions are proactive and timely, helping you to manage risks, ensure ongoing compliance, avoid penalties, and drive cost savings. And with that, I will turn it over to Wendy, who will share specifics about our comprehensive solutions and powerful systems capabilities. Wendy?
Thank you, Larry. As mentioned, Cartus chose to use the Compass software because it's best in class, and when combined with Cartus's program management and data analytics expertise, it's powerful. The Compass tool is a purpose-built, state-of-the-art software program that aggregates information from numerous sources to intelligently determine how much time employees have spent in different jurisdictions. Whether clients are focused on tax and immigration compliance for business travel or remote work authorization, it all starts with knowing where employees are located. This can be accomplished by tracking an employee's physical location or through travel data interfaces. Once we know where people are located and where they're going, Cartus can identify potential areas of risk and work with stakeholders to develop comprehensive solutions designed to mitigate risk. One is payroll withholding. Here, Cartus identifies non-resident employees who may require payroll withholding. We'll determine the percentage of time the person has spent in each jurisdiction and then partner with our client's payroll department to send that information so withholding can be adjusted. Permanent establishment is another critical area of focus. This module identifies the time employees spend in a particular location and where their work is performed in order to determine if there's a PE risk. Through the use of the jurisdiction time module, Cartus can help companies reduce their tax liability in certain cities when we can prove that people are no longer working in that area. Shenzhen is a new module born out of the need to make sure UK-based employees are compliant when traveling to Shenzhen area countries. The pre-travel assessment module is powered by CIBT's Immigration Logic. It's very important for global businesses and global business travelers to take pre-travel assessments, whether they're on assignment or not. Upcoming travel is identified via data integration or manual entry. Based on that information, the logic determines if a pre-travel assessment is needed, and if so, the traveler is guided through the assessment. Instantly, they'll know exactly what's needed to enter into a country, documentation along with health and safety information. Clients have the opportunity to use CIBT for their downstream services. This is an automated process allowing for pre-approval before downstream services are initiated. So as you can see with this solution, you could have a full picture of your global employee footprint and the potential compliance risks. I've talked about how important data interfaces are in assessing compliance risk. To make this process efficient, there are pre-built integrations with top enterprise companies to make the flow of data simple and quick. Once a client provides authorization to a partner, the data interfaces can be turned on in hours. Interfaces can be set up with any provider, and Cartus can coordinate this information exchange. I also spoke about location tracking. Companies are now in the process of determining their back-to-work plan, and they're reviewing job functions to determine who can work remotely, who has to be in the office, and where there are hybrid options. Remote work can create new compliance challenges for companies similar to business travelers, and it also creates risks for employees. The most accurate way to identify where people are working is by active tracking, using location services on a mobile device. This tool tracks jurisdictions only, not down to the street level, so an employer would never know that their employee is at the gym or the coffee shop. The employee is always in control. They can opt in or out at any time. And there's a huge focus on data privacy. Now you may be thinking, I'm not so sure my employees are going to like the idea of their company knowing their location. Well, let me tell you about a survey Topia conducted in December 2020 into January of 2021. The goal was to find out what was happening in the industry in light of all the changes brought on by the pandemic. They surveyed large companies with over 250 employees, ages from 18 to 64, and received about 1,200 responses. And one finding you might think is surprising. Employees are really okay with their employer tracking their location. As you can see, 95% of employees are okay with their employer knowing what country they're in and what state they're in. This fits in perfectly with assessing immigration and tax risk. So don't shy away from location tracking. It's a powerful tool to identify where employees are working. And in situations like a pandemic, it's instrumental in getting people to safe locations. Now I'm going to turn it over to Terry, who will demonstrate the Compass employee experience. Terry?
All right, thank you, Wendy. Okay, so you should be able now to view my employee calendar. So this is what the employee would see in their employee experience. Notice, as Wendy called out, it is not giving my exact address. You don't see a pinpoint on a calendar. It is simply reporting my jurisdiction level. I live in the state of Kentucky, but you don't know exactly where I'm working from in Kentucky. So you don't know the exact location, whether I'm working at a picnic table at the park or my home office. So it reports at the jurisdiction level. So as you can see here, states in the US, if I traveled outside of the US, it would report the country that I was working from. Now, you will notice that you see a city here within the US. We do offer select cities within the US for jurisdiction time. So if you opt in to city jurisdiction time within the US, we have that covered currently for New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. And we can add additional cities as needed for customers as well. But again, it's just reporting at the city level, still not a specific address. Everything that's reported here, we have a variety of options for data sources. So whether it is the active application that the employee can choose what device they want that loaded on, whether it's a company issued laptop, a mobile phone, or a tablet, or whether you're using passive data sources such as travel bookings, expense data, VPN logs, IP addresses. We can accept that type of data as well. Or if you would like to grant delegate access to an administrative assistant or an executive level assistant to review and manually input the information, that's a possibility as well. And then of course we have a manual option with the calendar. But regardless of data source, it's all presented in the same manner. And then the employee or the delegate can review and make updates as needed. So you may notice here, for example, that Saturday and Sunday are logged as personal time. Those days are configurable, so we can automatically log weekends as personal time if you want to track work days just as Monday through Friday from within a particular time window. We certainly can do that as well. Allocated work days are important from a tax withholding standpoint. So when a day is indicated as allocated work time, then that counts towards your tax withholding thresholds, whether it's within the states, so state to state withholding, or whether it's globally with country to country withholding. Those allocated work days count towards those tax withholding thresholds, whereas the personal days do not. Now, personal days do come into play when we start talking about tracking for the Schengen compliance within Europe. So the rolling 180-day time period where you're allowed 90 days in the Schengen zone, that is a module that we offer to track as well within the Cartus Compass solution. So personal days do count within those within the EMEA countries for Schengen, and it's easy to update information. So if I click here, for example, if I needed to change my location and update that information, I can do that with one click. If I need to change an allocated workday to personal time, for example. So if I was actually on vacation that day, if I was in the Schengen zone for a holiday, a weekend, or scheduled vacation time, I could indicate that as personal time as well. So you have these options which are also configurable to customers within the platform. So this list is a commonly requested list, not only to indicate personal time, but when you may be traveling across states in transit, or you're going country to country across Europe, for example, or if you're in a location for training or conference purposes, that can be taken into account as well, because that does not count towards your work allocation thresholds from the tax withholding perspective. So it's quick and easy to make any updates or changes as needed. The employee always has control, and they can review this information as well. Now, there's also a dashboard available to the employees, and within that dashboard, they have summary information. So they could track residency for a particular location, the European or the Schengen travel monitor. If you opt into that module, they always have visibility into tracking for those particular countries, how many days they have left in the rolling 180-day period, starting from today for the Schengen countries, and then, of course, for the outliers that have a separate 90-day tracking for Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, and Romania. Those are tracked separately from the 26 Schengen zone countries as well. So we automate that complexity for you within the system. And then this is an example of the jurisdiction time monitor within the US, so that you can track exactly how much time has been spent within those city jurisdiction limits and how many have been outside. And this has saved our customers on paying some of those business taxes that apply. So for example, you see here with New York, but San Francisco also applies a gross receipts tax based on the number of days worked within the city. Well, with the distributed workforce and people working remotely throughout the pandemic, even though a company has an office in San Francisco, they haven't necessarily always worked within those city limits. So with the jurisdiction time tracker, then you're able to identify exactly how much time which employees have spent within those city limits, and companies can potentially save large amounts of money on those taxes because the employees have not actually worked within the city limits. And in addition, here on the dashboard, the employee also has access to their travel assessments, where they can view all of that information and start or launch an assessment. And that's a quick teaser on the pre-travel assessment before I hand it back over to Wendy, and then we'll come back in detail and go through a pre-travel assessment for you.
Thanks, Terry. As you can see, that employee experience is great. One area that I wanted to highlight was the pre-travel assessment. As the world opens back up and travel resumes, it'll be important for companies to make sure their employees have the necessary documentation and information needed to travel to a new location. We talked before about the pre-travel assessment and how it could be initiated by travel data or be initiated manually. The output of the assessment identifies the need for Social Security, so A1 or COC, posted worker notification, business visa, and health and safety. Since this is powered by industry experts, as new rules and regulations are identified, the system is updated accordingly. This takes the burden off company managers and makes employees feel at ease. The employee assessment itself is not complicated and it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to hand it back to Terry to show you the pre-travel employee experience. Terry?
All right, thank you, Wendy. All right, so the pre-travel assessment experience. So there are multiple ways to do this. So if you think in terms of traditional business travelers, we can integrate with your travel booking providers, for example, and through that integration, then we can automatically pull any travel data over that has been booked. So once a trip has been booked in any travel booking system, we are vendor agnostic and can integrate with any platform. We bring that data over, and then the Cartus Compass solution makes an initial assessment based off of not only the travel booking data, but also the employee information. So also through an integration with your HCM or your HRIS, you see a couple of examples here, like whether it's Workday or SAP SuccessFactors or any other data platform that contains your employee data, we can integrate that information and automatically bring that over. So then the solution does an initial assessment based off of the employee's country of residence, their location information, where they are planning to travel to, for how much time, where they have traveled previously, and does a preliminary assessment based off of configured business rules and parameters, and then notifies the employee that additional information may be required and that they need to complete a travel assessment. Now, the other option is to conduct a manual assessment. So if for some reason you do not want the platforms integrated, or if you simply want to run a remote worker assessment to see what immigration requirements would be required without travel being booked, then you certainly can do that through a manual assessment as well. So the integration piece would, that's step would be skipped. You'd be able to complete a remote worker or a manual assessment, and that could be conducted by the employee or an administrator in the platform, or someone in HR or global mobility would be able to complete that manual assessment as well. So then once the notification is sent out that an assessment is to be completed, if we're automating it through the travel bookings, then within the platform itself, so within the Cartus Compass solution, then the employee has a message to complete the assessment. Or if they're kicking off a manual travel assessment, which that could be used for a remote worker assessment, then they would be able to make that selection here and kick off that assessment. So once they actually begin the assessment, they're seamlessly brought to the immigration assessment, where they fill in some of the basic information that you can see here. So much of this would be pre-populated through integrations if we're talking about the business traveler solution, or if it's a manual assessment, they simply would enter the destination country where they want to work remotely or where they plan to travel to. They enter those travel dates and their home location or residence. And then they make a selection from the list of the planned activities. So the activities also help determine what documents may be required. So the assessment will conduct a complete immigration assessment. So whether there's a work permit, a visa required, a residency card, in addition to all of the immigration documents, it will also assess whether a posted worker notification is required within Europe, if an A1 certificate is needed, for example, for those Social Security requirements. And it also produces information on health and safety requirements and alerts, as well as information while in transit. So if they are just transferring through a particular country, any requirements or regulations, including things like COVID testing or quarantining, that would all be included in the assessment. So once they complete the information within the assessment, they instantly on the screen will have the assessment results. So they have the results immediately at their fingertips within the application. And you can see the results of that assessment here. So reviewing the information that was entered, and I can see in this case that an A1 certificate, for example, is a required document as shown here at the top. And then the major steps are shown with estimated amounts of time for the entire immigration process. And you can see that a posted worker notification is likely required here, and the estimated amount of time for that. So those documents with a description, an estimated amount of time, you have all of the laws cited here, government guidelines for these particular locations, as well as your restrictions, the health and safety requirements, things that are required, such as mask within that particular country that you're visiting, the transit requirements, re-entry requirements back to your home country or the country that you were traveling from. So it's a full, comprehensive assessment, whether it's for a traditional business traveler or whether it's for a remote worker assessment, to indicate exactly what immigration documents, what health and safety requirements, A1 certificates, posted worker notifications are required. And then you'd have the ability, if you wanted to initiate services, you could initiate a service request that would then go to CIBT and Newland Chase to initiate those actual immigration services if you wanted to use those downstream services to secure the required immigration documents. That's certainly not required, but it is an option. So that gives you a basic overview of the pre-travel assessment experience, what the results look like, and what's available to you through the Cartus Compass solution. So now back to Larry. for our final section.
Okay, thank you, Terry. So now to conclude, I'll talk a little bit about how this works and how we set up each engagement to your specifications aligned with your organization's goals. Our service delivery can be broken down into the following 4 distinct phases. Phase 1 is collating and analyzing the data. We quickly and easily access data that already exists within your systems or third-party systems to create a global footprint analysis that identifies your company's areas of risk. We use the data to propose a solution specific to your needs. Phase 2 is solution design and implementation. We align process to your organization's distributed workforce policy or policies and design the output according to your specifications. We turn on existing or set up new integrations for passive data flow, and we communicate procedures to your employees or travelers. Phase 3 is the deliverable output. We utilize the specific Compass modules according to your risk profile and needs. And phase 4 is review and evolution. We review the output, report back, take necessary downstream actions. We evaluate the program to keep in sync with the ever-changing needs of your workforce and organizational goals. We refine the process, adding additional modules and employee groups as needed. We will be your guide through each phase with a dedicated project manager and team of experts who are focused on identifying risk, reducing your exposure, and helping you and your employees with regulatory compliance. With our team, technology, and processes, we turn a daunting challenge into a simple, manageable, cost-effective program that brings you, your organizations, and your employees peace of mind with global compliance and duty of care. And with that, I want to thank you for attending this session on Cartus Distributed Workforce Solutions. Please contact us if you would like additional information or resources. Thank you.